February 17, 1942. Führer Hauptquartier, East Prussia. The snow falls silently on the Wolf's Lair as Großadmiral Karl Donitz presents his monthly report to Adolf Hitler. His voice carries absolute confidence. The numbers are irrefutable. In January alone, U-boats sent 327,357 tons of Allied shipping to the bottom of the Atlantic. Donitz finger traces routes across the map, each line representing a convoy, each X marking a kill. Mein Führer, he says, at this rate, Britain will be starved into submission within 8 months. What Donitz doesn't know, what none of them know yet, is that they are staring at their own defeat and calling it victory. The U-boat arm in early 1942 represents the apex of German naval confidence. After the disaster of the surface fleet, the submarines have become the Kriegsmarine's only strategic weapon. And the statistics seem to prove their effectiveness. In 1941, U-boats sank 432 Allied ships totaling 2.1 million tons. The production capacity of British and American shipyards cannot possibly keep pace. Or so the calculations suggest. Korvettenkapitän Adalbert Schnee, one of the most successful U-boat commanders with 23 ships sunk, later wrote in his patrol log, "The convoys are like herds of cattle. We are the wolves. The escorts bark and snap, but they cannot protect them all. Mathematics is on our side. We need only continue." The mathematics Schnee refers to is brutally simple. Germany operates approximately 91 U-boats in the Atlantic in early 1942. Each boat, when on station, can sink an average of 2 to 3 merchant ships per patrol. British and American shipyards together produce perhaps 200 to 300 new merchant vessels annually. The equation appears unsolvable for the Allies. Losses exceed production. The convoy system, reintroduced after its success in World War I, seems merely to concentrate targets. The typical convoy of this period presents what German planners view as a target-rich environment. 40 to 50 merchant ships, arranged in columns, plodding across the Atlantic at the speed of the slowest vessel, usually 7 to 8 knots. Protection consists of perhaps 4 to 6 escorts, corvettes, destroyers, maybe an armed trawler. The escorts carry depth charges and ASTIC, sonar, but both weapons have severe limitations. ASTIC cannot detect surfaced submarines. Depth charges must be dropped directly over a submerged boat, requiring the escort to lose sonar contact at the critical moment. And there simply aren't enough escorts to cover the vast ocean spaces. Admiral Sir Percy Noble, Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches Command, faces these grim realities in his Liverpool headquarters. He has 394 escort vessels to protect convoys across the entire Atlantic. The air gap, that vast mid-Atlantic space beyond the range of land-based aircraft, stretches for 600 miles. In this void, U-boats hunt with near impunity. Noble's operational staff calculates that to provide adequate protection for every convoy, they would need at least 900 escorts. They have less than half that number. But in the spring of 1942, something begins to shift. Something the Germans don't immediately notice. The first Liberty ship, the SS Patrick Henry, slides down the ways in Baltimore on September 27, 1941. It is an ugly vessel, a simple, boxy freighter designed for one purpose: mass production. Maritime Commission Chairman Admiral Emery Land calls them dreadful-looking objects. The British dismiss them as cheap and nasty. German naval intelligence barely notes their existence. After all, one more merchant ship, no matter how quickly built, cannot alter the strategic equation. The Liberty ship specifications seem almost comically inadequate by traditional shipbuilding standards. Length: 441 feet, 6 inches. Beam: 56 feet, 10 inches. Displacement: 14,245 tons fully loaded. Speed: 11 knots maximum, though most struggle to maintain 9 knots. They are powered by obsolete triple-expansion steam engines, a technology dating to the 19th century. They are welded rather than riveted, a cost-cutting measure that traditionalists insist will make them structurally weak. They carry no defensive armament initially, making them helpless against even a single attacking aircraft or surfaced U-boat. Donitz reviews intelligence reports on American shipbuilding capacity with barely concealed contempt. According to the data available to the Kriegsmarine in early 1942, American yards are producing merchant ships at a rate of approximately 300,000 tons per month. This is impressive by peacetime standards. But U-boats are sinking ships at a faster rate. In the first quarter of 1942 alone, they sink 216 Allied vessels totaling 1.15 million tons. The math still favors Germany. What the intelligence reports don't capture, what can't be captured in aggregate tonnage figures, is the revolution happening in American shipyards. At the Bethlehem Fairfield Shipyard in Baltimore, at the Kaiser shipyards in Richmond, California, and at 16 other locations across the United States, a transformation in industrial production is underway that will render all previous calculations obsolete. Henry J. Kaiser, a construction magnate with no shipbuilding experience, approaches the challenge like building a dam or a highway. He studies the Liberty ship design and breaks it down into prefabricated sections. Rather than building ships from keel up in traditional fashion, his workers will assemble massive pre-built sections like a child's model kit. Engines, boilers, deckhouses, all constructed separately, then lifted into place by huge cranes. The traditional shipwright's craft is replaced by assembly line efficiency. The Germans know none of this. Their intelligence estimates for American production capacity are based on pre-war peacetime industrial performance and traditional shipbuilding methods. In February 1942, a classified report from the Seekriegsleitung, Naval War Command, estimates that American yards might, with maximum effort, produce 600 merchant ships in 1942. The report concludes, even at this optimistic production rate, sinkings will exceed new construction by a comfortable margin. Korvettenkapitän Werner Heinke, commander of U-515, writes to a friend in March 1942, "The Americans are building ships, yes. But ships must be crewed, loaded, escorted, and sailed. Each step takes time, resources, coordination. We need only sink them. It is the perfect asymmetric warfare. Destruction is always easier than creation." The confidence extends beyond the U-boat commanders to the highest levels of German strategic planning. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, chief of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, OKW, reviews the tonnage figures at a staff meeting in April 1942 and declares, "The Führer's faith in Admiral Donitz is well-founded. The Atlantic campaign will decide the war before our armies ever reach Moscow or the Caucasus." But by May 1942, small anomalies begin appearing in the reports. Convoys that should have been devastated arrive at Liverpool or New York with acceptable losses. U-boats report sinking specific vessels that somehow reappear on manifests weeks later. The aggregate sinking numbers remain impressive, but the percentage of cargo actually prevented from reaching Britain begins, almost imperceptibly, to decline. A young staff officer in the Kriegsmarine's Operations Analysis section, Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Schmidt, notices the discrepancy. His job is to track not just ships sunk, but cargo prevented from delivery. In June 1942, he prepares a routine memorandum noting that while U-boats reported sinking 144 ships totaling 700,000 tons, the actual impact on British imports appears less severe than expected. The memorandum disappears into the bureaucracy. No one wants to question success. The convoys continue to sail. The U-boats continue to hunt. And in the shipyards of America, something unprecedented in human history continues to accelerate. On a cold morning in February 1942, workers at the Bethlehem Fairfield shipyard watched the SS Patrick Henry, Liberty Ship No. 1, sail for Britain with 7,000 tons of cargo. They had no way of knowing they were witnessing the beginning of an industrial avalanche that would bury the U-boat fleet beneath an ocean of steel. The German High Command possessed perhaps the finest military analysis staff in the world. Their intelligence services had penetrated Allied naval codes. Their U-boat commanders were skilled, experienced, and ruthless. But they were all making the same fundamental mistake. They were counting individual ships when they should have been counting industrial capacity. They were measuring sinkings when they should have been measuring deliveries. In February 1942, 91% of cargo loaded in Allied ports for Britain arrived at its destination. Donitz looked at ships sunk and saw victory. What he should have been looking at was ships that got through. September 12, 1942. North Atlantic, 47 degrees north, 28 degrees west. Captain Lieutenant Siegfried von Forstner brings you 4:02 to periscope depth at dawn. Through the lens, he sees what every U-boat commander dreams of, a convoy stretching across the horizon. 43 merchant ships in 9 columns, escorted by only 6 corvettes. The mathematics of destruction are in his favor. He signals the position to BDU, Befehlshaber der U-Boot, U-boat command, and prepares to attack. What happens next defies von Forstner's calculations and experience. The convoy is SC-100, Slow Convoy 100, eastbound from Halifax to Liverpool. The escort group is B-6, commanded by Commander Donald McIntyre in HMS Hesperus. The convoy commodore is Vice Admiral Sir Kenelm Creighton aboard the merchant ship Empire Mote. This is a routine mid-Atlantic crossing, or should be. U-402 is not alone. 6 other U-boats are converging on the convoy based on von Forstner's signal. Von Forstner submerges to attack position and fires a 4-torpedo spread at a large tanker. The first 2 miss. The third strikes but fails to detonate, a faulty torpedo, a chronic problem for U-boats. The fourth hits, but the tanker, the 10,000-ton British Splendor, doesn't sink. Its cargo is ballast, not oil. The explosion damages but doesn't destroy. Within minutes, corvettes are racing toward U-402's position, forcing von Forstner deep. For the next 8 hours, U-402 is hunted relentlessly. The escorts have something new, improved Type 271 radar that can detect surface submarines at 3,000 yards even in darkness or fog. Von Forstner tries to surface after nightfall to recharge batteries and pursue the convoy. HMS Hesperus detects him immediately and forces him under with a pattern of depth charges that come terrifyingly close enough that cork insulation breaks loose from the submarine's hull and seawater begins leaking through stressed seams. U-402 manages to escape, but von Forstner has expended most of his torpedoes for minimal result. He surfaces hours later to find the convoy gone, disappeared into the vast Atlantic. In his patrol log, he writes, "The escorts were everywhere simultaneously. They knew where we were before we surfaced." The tactical situation has fundamentally changed. Von Forstner's experience is being replicated across the Atlantic in the fall of 1942. U-boats are still sinking ships. The monthly tonnage figures remain impressive. But something else is happening, something that doesn't show up clearly in the gross statistics. Convoys are getting through with the majority of their cargo intact. At Western Approaches Command in Liverpool, operational researchers led by Professor Patrick Blackett are tracking a different set of numbers. They measure not ships lost, but ships delivered. In September 1942, of 487 merchant ships in transatlantic convoys, 459 arrive safely. That's a 94.2% delivery rate. The U-boats sink 28 ships, a significant number. But 459 ships, carrying 3.2 million tons of cargo, make it through. Blackett's team produces a classified report titled The Efficiency of Anti-Submarine Operations that will later be called one of the most important documents of the war. The key finding: current sinking rates, while substantial, are insufficient to prevent the vast majority of cargo from reaching destination. The strategic calculus favors convoy operations by a considerable margin. But the Germans don't have access to this analysis. They see their sinking numbers and assume success. In November 1942, an event occurs that should have shattered German confidence but is instead misinterpreted. Convoy on 144, westbound from Britain to America, is attacked by a wolf pack of 12 U-boats. In a 4-day running battle, the U-boats sink 5 merchant ships. By traditional measures, this is a German tactical victory. 5 kills for no U-boat losses. The action is celebrated in German propaganda. What the propaganda doesn't mention, on 144 consisted of 47 merchant ships. 5 lost means 42 delivered, an 89.4% success rate for the convoy. More critically, those 42 ships are returning to America to load more cargo. The cycle continues. The Germans are winning tactically while losing strategically, and they don't realize it. The American production miracle is now fully visible to anyone who looks. In November 1942, American shipyards deliver 101 merchant ships totaling 834,000 tons. This is more than double what German intelligence predicted was possible. The SS Robert E. Peary, a Liberty ship built at the Kaiser Richmond shipyard, is completed in just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes from keel laying to launch, a world record that stands as a publicity stunt to demonstrate capability. The average construction time for a Liberty ship is now 42 days, down from 230 days just 18 months earlier. Henry Kaiser's assembly line methods have transformed shipbuilding from a craft into an industry. Workers who had never seen a ship before are now producing them faster than traditional shipwrights thought possible. Kaiser's Richmond Yard No. 2 employs 27,000 workers on 3 shifts. The yard operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Welding arcs light up the night sky. Cranes lift prefabricated sections, bow units, stern units, deckhouses, entire engine rooms, and slot them into position. The SS John W. Brown, Liberty Ship No. 387, is completed in November 1942. Like all Liberty ships, it is ungainly and slow, but it can carry 10,000 tons of cargo. One Liberty ship can transport 2,840 jeeps, or 440 tanks, or 230 million rounds of rifle ammunition. It can be crewed by 44 merchant sailors and 30 naval armed guard to operate the deck guns now fitted to every Liberty as they leave the shipyard. Corvettenkapitän Erich Topp, commander of U-552 and one of Germany's most successful aces with 35 ships sunk, returns from patrol in December 1942 and reports to Dönitz personally. Herr Großadmiral, the tactical situation has deteriorated. The escorts are more numerous, better equipped, and more aggressive. We are expending more torpedoes per kill. Battery endurance is insufficient for prolonged pursuit. And there are so many merchantmen. Sink 1, 2, 3 more appear. Dönitz listens but remains confident. U-boat construction is accelerating. In 1942, German yards launched 238 new U-boats. The operational fleet now numbers 212 boats, with typically 40 to 50 operating in the Atlantic at any given time. The plan is to increase this to 300 operational boats by mid-1943. Dönitz's calculations show that 300 U-boats can sink ships faster than the Allies can build them. The mathematics seem irrefutable. But the mathematics are based on faulty assumptions. German intelligence estimates total Allied merchant ship production at 5 million tons annually. The actual figure for 1942 is 8.3 million tons, and rising. In December 1942 alone, American, British, and Canadian yards deliver 1.1 million tons of new shipping. U-boats in the same month sink 260,000 tons. The production surplus, ships built minus ships sunk, is 840,000 tons. In a single month, the Allies gained the equivalent of 84 new Liberty ships beyond replacement needs. A classified report prepared by Captain Zur C. Kurt Freiwald, head of the Kriegsmarine's Shipping Analysis Section, reaches Dönitz's desk in January 1943. It contains troubling observations. Analysis of recovered manifests and interrogation of captured merchant crews indicates that British imports, while reduced from peacetime levels, remain sufficient for war prosecution. American production capacity appears to have been significantly underestimated in previous assessments. Recommend detailed review of industrial intelligence. Donitz marks the report, noted, and files it. The U-boat campaign is at its peak. In January 1943, they sink 203 ships totaling 1.2 million tons. These are the highest numbers of the war. Success appears total. Donitz requests, and receives, Hitler's permission to deploy more boats to American waters, where targets are still plentiful and poorly defended. What neither Donitz nor his staff fully grasps is that they are fighting a war of attrition against an opponent who has solved the fundamental equation: production exceeds destruction. By January 1943, there are more Allied merchant ships in service than at any previous point in the war. Despite 39 months of U-boat operations, despite over 1,000 merchant ships sunk, the Allied merchant fleet is growing, not shrinking. At a convoy conference in Washington in February 1943, Admiral Ernest King, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Fleet, reviews the statistics with British counterparts. "Gentlemen," he says, "we are now building ships faster than all causes, including enemy action, can sink them. The question is no longer if we can supply Britain, but how much cargo we can deliver and how quickly." The tide is turning. The Germans sense something is wrong but cannot identify what. They see their victories and miss the larger pattern. They are drowning in an ocean of enemy production, and every convoy that gets through, every 90% delivery rate, hammers another nail into the U-boat fleet's coffin. May 24, 1943. Convoy ONS 5, North Atlantic. The battle that will break the U-boat offensive is already over, though the full realization hasn't yet reached Berlin. 42 merchant ships departed Liverpool. 31 arrived in North America. 11 ships lost, a devastating blow by any standard. But in the same action, 6 U-boats were sunk. The exchange rate, the fundamental currency of the Atlantic War, has inverted catastrophically. Gross Admiral Donitz studies the patrol reports in his Paris headquarters with growing disbelief. May 1943 has become a bloodbath for U-boats. In the first 3 weeks, 31 submarines have been lost, more than in any previous month of the war. The rate of loss now exceeds the rate of replacement. On May 24, Donitz makes the most difficult decision of his career. He orders all U-boats to withdraw from the North Atlantic convoy routes. In his daily log, Donitz writes, "The enemy has succeeded through new location devices, of which we still have insufficient knowledge, in inflicting such serious losses on our U-boats that the continuation of operations with the same tactics can no longer be justified." It is an admission of defeat wrapped in technical language. What Donitz calls new location devices is actually a cascade of technological and tactical innovations that have transformed the Battle of the Atlantic into a slaughter. The Allies have closed the air gap with long-range B-24 Liberator bombers and small escort carriers that sail with convoys. They have deployed centimetric radar that U-boats cannot detect. They have broken German naval codes through ultra-intelligence. They have perfected a head-throwing weapons like Hedgehog that allow escorts to attack without losing sonar contact. And above all, they have more escorts, more aircraft, more of everything. But the ultimate weapon isn't technology. It's production capacity. Captain John Waters, commanding escort carrier USS Bogue, watches from his bridge in June 1943 as his aircraft sink U-217 northwest of the Azores. It is the 6th U-boat kill for Bogue's air group in 4 weeks. In his action report, Waters writes, "The enemy submarine force appears to be operating at unsustainable loss rates. Our attacks are successful because we have sufficient assets to maintain constant pressure. Every convoy now has air cover. Every surfaced submarine is vulnerable." The statistics tell a story of overwhelming force. In May 1943, transatlantic convoys carried 379,000 troops and 3.4 million tons of cargo to Britain. Only 14 ships were lost from convoy, a 96.3% delivery rate. The U-boats are still hunting, still fighting, but they might as well be trying to stop a tsunami with a net. The Liberty ship production numbers have become almost incomprehensible. In the first 6 months of 1943, American yards alone deliver 597 merchant ships totaling 5.3 million tons. The average production time for a Liberty ship is now down to 39 days. Kaiser's Richmond Yard No. 2 is completing a new vessel every 5 days. The SS Robert Ley is built in 27 days. The Joseph N. Teal in 10 days. These are no longer impressive outliers. They are routine production. A British Ministry of War transport report from June 1943 analyzes the strategic situation with stark clarity. Enemy submarine operations, while continuing to pose tactical threats to individual convoys, have failed strategically. Current rates of new construction exceed all losses from all causes by approximately 400,000 tons monthly. British imports are now limited primarily by port congestion and distribution capacity, not by shipping availability. The report includes a telling detail. Britain's ports are becoming so congested with arriving ships that many vessels wait 3 to 4 days to unload. The bottleneck is no longer the Atlantic crossing. It's what happens after ships arrive. The U-boat threat, while not eliminated, has been reduced to a manageable operational problem. Convoy SC-143, which departs Halifax on October 1, 1943, exemplifies the new reality. 39 merchant ships, escorted by 12 destroyers and corvettes, plus continuous air cover from escort carrier HMS Tracker and land-based liberators. 2 U-boats attempt to attack. One is sunk by aircraft before reaching attack position. The second fires torpedoes but is immediately depth-charged by escorts and forced to break off. All 39 merchant ships reach Liverpool without loss. The cargo manifest includes 287,000 tons of supplies: food, fuel, ammunition, aircraft, vehicles, steel, raw materials. Everything Britain needs to survive and prepare for invasion of Europe. Fregatten-Captain Gunter Hessler, Donit's son-in-law and head of the U-boat Operations Analysis Staff, prepares a comprehensive assessment in October 1943. The document, classified Geheime Kommandosake, Secret Command Matter, is devastating. Analysis of patrol results from May through September 1943 indicates fundamental failure of submarine operations. Average tonnage sunk per U-boat per day at sea has declined from 378 tons in March to 134 tons in September. Simultaneously, loss rate has increased from 4.8% to 8.7%. Current operations consume submarines faster than replacement rate and inflict insufficient damage to affect enemy shipping capacity.